Good morning, everybody. My name is Rabbi Danny Moss. I'm honored to be joined here by Rabbi Stacy Offner, together here with the Rabinowitz family in this hour of need. I open with an insight from the biblical book of Ecclesiastes, in Hebrew Kohelet, which offers many insights into the questions of life and death, of exploring the human condition. One of its more cryptic verses reads as follows: Yom hamavet miyom hivaldo, which means the day of one's death is greater than the day of one's birth. Naturally, for the ancient rabbis who interpreted this verse, they found it very puzzling. How could the day of one's death possibly be better than one's birth? And then comes a story from the sage Rabbi Levi, who explains it with a story. He says, imagine that there are two ships laden with merchandise, one coming into port, the other going out. The people standing on the dock cheer, but they cheer only for the ship that was coming into port. A spectator who is puzzled asks, why would you cheer only for the ship coming in, but not the ship that's going out to sea? And soon someone in the crowd speaks up. We're cheering for the ship that's coming into port, for we know that it has gone out in peace, and that it has also returned in peace. However, the ship that's only beginning its voyage, who can tell what its fate will be? So it is, teach the rabbis, with a human life. When a person is born and begins one's life's journey, we do not know what sort of life it will be, what sort of life he or she will live, what will be the nature of his deeds. However, when he has finished that journey, it is apparent to everyone just what he accomplished, who he was. The life journey of Mark Rabinowitz is worthy of celebration. His devotion to his family, his empathy and kindness to everyone, his dedication to teachers and students, all of these and so much more will endure as a beautiful legacy that we begin to explore today. As so many emotions and memories fill this space, we are heartbroken together as we gather first and foremost for you, for the Rabinowitz family. Our empathy is with you. Our hearts are with you. Fran, Mark's beloved wife and life partner of over 40 years. Sean and Mara and Megan and Peter and Kara. And of course, all of the grandkids. He loved you so much. In Hebrew, the word for funeral is halvaya or livaya, which comes from a root that means joining together, escorting. We gather this morning to escort Mark Rabinowitz, who is known by his Hebrew name, Mordechai ben Nisan Uvlumafega, to a place beyond what we can understand. We also escort the Rabinowitz family through this loss, saying farewell to a deeply good man, a mensch. That's the Hebrew word, the Yiddish word for it. So our grief and sympathy mingle this morning as we walk with all of you. We escort you along the mourner's path with great love. In times of loss, Jewish tradition prescribes that we focus on two things. The first, you have all already brought, and family, I do encourage you to look just a moment behind you to see all of those people who have come here to share their presence and love. It's a little overwhelming. The gift of presence and the gift of memories. Judaism has us share stories and memories and treasured times together in order to cope. And so that's what we do this morning. We begin to tell some of those stories, and we will continue to tell stories to celebrate a very good man, as we do so guided by the prayers and poetry and wisdom of the Jewish tradition. The 121st Psalm. Esa einai el ha'arim, Esa einai el hearim, me'ayin yavo, yavo Ezri, me'ayin yavo, yavo Ezri, me'ayin yavo, yavo Ezri, me'ayin yavo, yavo Ezri. Esa einai el hearim, Esa einai el hearim, me'ayin yavo, yavo Ezri, me'ayin yavo, yavo Ezri. Me'ayin yavo, yavo Ezri. Me'ayin yavo, yavo Ezri.
Esa einai el heharim. Those beautiful words just chanted in Hebrew by Rabbi Moss are the words of the 121st Psalm. In English, they read, I lift up my eyes to the mountains. From where does my help come? And the reassuring answer, my help comes from God, who will not allow your foot to slip. Fran, we know that you have been sheer strength for so many over so much time. And you have been that rock through the most trying of times. But in this moment of great loss, we are here to pray the 121st Psalm on your behalf. May God be your rock. May God be your strength. May God guard you from all harm. May God guard your soul, your going and your coming, now and forever. We have all come here today to honor the memory of Mark Rabinowitz. Who cannot see him now, smiling, of course, with arms open wide, so glad to see you, and so glad to see you. We honor his memory today by opening our arms as he opened his. Today we have come here to extend our support to Fran, to Mark's children, to Sean and Kara and Mara and Megan and Peter, and of course to Mark's grandchildren, Jordan and Jack and Benjamin and Vivian and Henry and Charles. Kena hara, we say in Yiddish. So many blessings were his. But now, death has come to Mark, as it does to all people. Mark's death brings to our minds and hearts the common concerns and shared destiny of all humankind. We're drawn together by deep felt emotions, and we're reminded of the essential community that lies beneath the too many divisions of humanity on earth. Mark and Fran were educators. Dare I say, brilliant educators. But oh, how humbling death is. Holy and humbling. Fran was blessed to be at Mark's side when he breathed his last breath. And oh, how true it is that in the face of eternity, we are made small. Though we know that our destiny is to tarry but a while, the time of separation brings anguish and grief and awe. May all those whose lives were uplifted by Mark's presence be strengthened by the voices of our sacred scriptures and by the loving arms of our friends as we struggle through the darkness with courage to find our way again.
Adonai ma'adam v'teda'ehu, ben enosh v'atchashvehu, Adam lehevel dama, yamav ketzel over, baboker yatzitz v'chalaf, la'erev yemolel v'yavesh. Tashev enosh al daka, v'atomer shuvu b'nei Adam. Adonai, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath, our days like a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to return to dust, saying, "Return, O mortal creatures." Would that we were wise, would that we understood where we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing of us away. Our glory does not accompany us. It stays in the world. Mark the wholehearted and behold the upright. They shall have peace. Adonai, redeem all the souls of your servants, and none who trust in you shall ever be desolate.
Would that we were wise. And so we turn to the wisdom literature for wisdom. And there we find these words from the book of Ecclesiastes. L'kol zman va'et, l'chol chefetz tachat hashamayim. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. In this time of grief, we listen to the voice of the psalmist, who brings us the ever new message of God's nearness and tells us of our kinship with the Creator in light and in darkness, in joy and in sorrow, in life and in death. Psalm 23, a song of David. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even When I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever.
מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא אחסר, בנאות שירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינעלני. נפשי אשובב, נפשי אשובב, ינחני ומגלי צדק למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צלמוות, לא ירא רע, כי אתה עמדי, שבטך ומשענתך, שבטך ומשענתך, המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן, תערוך לפני שולחן, תערוך לפני שולחן, נגד צורריי. דשנת בשמן ראשי, דשנת בשמן ראשי, דשנת בשמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. I'm just a simple boy from the Bronx. That's how Mark described himself all those many years ago, right, Fran? Just a simple boy from the Bronx. As time went on, life got a little less simple. Life grew successful and accomplished. Yet that humble goodness, something of that simple boy from the Bronx, always remained, right? Growing up, he didn't have much, but in Mark's eyes, he had everything. Neighbor opened door to neighbor. Kids played outside together in the street. The Jewish community was very tight-knit. I believe that there's even a friend from all those years ago here with us today, 2 friends here with us today. Mark's father drove a cab. He worked many hours. His mother was with him at home. His brother Fred, of blessed memory, was his best friend. Life and career brought the Rabinowitz family to Stratford, Trumbull, eventually to Brantford. And Sean and Mara and Megan, you all made your entrances. And eventually Peter and Kara also joined the family. And you both described to me how when you came to be part of the clan, you felt the love from Mark, just like you were his own kids. As a father, Mark was both devoted and attentive. He never missed a game. When kids needed him, he was there with you, 100% invested, 100% listening, focused on you and your needs. He was the same, I've learned, with the grandkids. Oh, he just loved you so much. You were at the center of his world. I hear that he taught you all how to read. Do you guys remember that? He loved playing. He loved traveling to Florida with you, to take you kayaking, to go to some kind of godforsaken gator pit that I saw a photo of on a cell phone. Gatorland? Oh, yes, who could forget Gatorland? When it was time to catch up with your parents, it would always be, how's my grandkid, right? How's my Ben? How's my Vivian, right? How's my Jack? How's my Jordan? And then, of course, the next question for his kids would be, and how are you? Right? I think from what I understand, when Mark would ask questions like this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, when he asked questions like this, it was beyond just a mere platitude. Right? He would look you in the eye. You could tell that he cared, that he really meant it. And I'm not just talking about his family. I think that everybody here knew that. Now, to my detriment, I did not know that because I did not have the pleasure to know him personally. I did get to meet him very briefly at the end of his life. And I could tell very quickly that this man was an empath. He was very interested in everybody else in the room. He was very self-effacing and humble. He told me he was very quiet. And I could tell that he really cared about those around him. He was invested in their lives and in their success. I'm sure that this is just one thing among many that made him an excellent principal. He loved working with teachers, mentoring students, building up excellent schools. And he really did build up excellence at school. I'll leave it to the many experts I see around the room who know about excellence in schools to explain the particulars later at lunch and Shiva. But I did hear that his test results at one point were on par with Darien, Connecticut, despite the obvious discrepancy in resources. He was so proud of what he accomplished at school. He was so proud of his school. Be the best you can be. Be the best you can be. That was his motto. I see teal tags scattered throughout the room, showing that it was not just a motto, but a way to live. Be the best that you can be. He was. He did. And he rejoiced with other people when they lived up to that standard too. Now at this point, I'd be remiss if I didn't observe Mark's Hebrew name, Mordechai, which is the same name as the hero of the Purim story, Purim being the Jewish holiday that falls this very month. In that story, Mordechai serves as a mentor to his niece, Esther, encouraging her to rise to the opportunity she is given to ascend to royal station so that she might save her people from existential threats. In chapter 4 of the book of Esther, Mordecai encourages her, saying, "You could remain silent now, but who knows? Perhaps you've come to your royal position for just such a time as this." Esther then goes on, after their pep talk, to convince the king to save her people. In the story of Esther, Mordecai works behind the scenes. He is very seldom a central character in the narrative, but more often the quiet, charismatic, cheering for the hero. Does that sound anything like Mark? The quiet, charismatic, cheering for his heroes, totally invested in their success. Take a moment to look around this space. Note the educators, administrators, the generations of students and teachers, and students who became teachers, each of you whose life he touched in ways both modest and profound. Can I just invite you, if you consider Mark Rabinowitz in some sense to be your teacher, could you please raise your hand? I learned that Mark never had to search for a job. Schools came to him. He initially retired in 2010. Teachers would continue to visit him at home, bringing donuts, attending kids' weddings, going on kayak trips together, and later even visiting him in hospice. I am not sure that I have ever personally seen an employee visiting their employer at hospice on their deathbed before. But that's the first thing that I saw when I came in my limited window to visit him. How remarkable. He was so proud of his teachers, and they all knew that he had their back. And you had his back too. Living in Branford was a choice, and this is something that rabbis can certainly identify with. Living in Branford was a choice because Fran and Mark knew that they would run into people from the school all the time. Parents would come up in restaurants. What would they say? They wouldn't complain. They wouldn't say, "Hey, have you seen my email yet?" Right? They would share their admiration. I want to say thanks. Maybe that seems more remarkable in polarized times such as these. Or maybe it's remarkable for any time. Now, Mark eventually went back to work in Killingworth schools, right? With his wheelchair and oxygen tank. Staff or students would come to meet him at his parking space to help him into the school, and he would then just work with them all day long, the workhorse, even in his wheelchair. He loved it so much. It's so rare to find such a perfect match between human and vocation. For him, it was really a calling. And it really wasn't about his skills, it was about who he was. Be the best you can be. That was his motto, but more than that, it was his living example. His legacy will be of love and admiration and excellence because that's the way he lived his life. In Judaism, we say, may his memory be a blessing. The memory of Mark Rabinowitz is already a blessing. Would you like my stand for your...
No, I'm okay. Welcome to all of you And thank you for being present with our family in our grief, in our wanting to honor Mark, and all of you who have made this time more bearable for us. Over the past few days, I knew I so wanted to do Mark's eulogy, but I kept putting off sitting down to write it, and suddenly realized that I was procrastinating because I didn't think I had the ability to communicate the stellar man that Mark was. Then I decided that God and all my memories, past and present, as well as Mark himself, would help me. So everyone, just please know I'm doing my best. Mark and I have been married for 43 years. We met and fell in love and married quickly, because when you know you're with the right person, you just know. We certainly came from very different backgrounds and cultures. I was first generation Irish Catholic who had spent 3 years preparing to become a Sister of Mercy, and he was very Jewish, and we were both so proud of our heritages. The question was, could we blend them and our families? We were so fortunate. Both families came together and loved each other and embraced us. I still remember Mark's grandmother sitting together on the couch in Queens when we were introduced. They asked me if I thought I could cook a kosher meal. I had no idea what that meant, but I said, of course. And my mother, with her wonderful Irish brogue, said, well, I hear Jewish men make good husbands. And so we married on July 5th, 1980. For those of you who attended the wedding, you remember it was incredibly hot. There was a thunderstorm, and the lights went out. There were no generators. The cake melted, and there isn't one picture of Mark with his jacket on. But we were oblivious to it all, just young and head over heels. We had bought a home in Stratford, old and needing work, so drafty that Mark's aunt and uncle spent an overnight and slept in their coats. And we were both educators, so you know the money wasn't plentiful, but we were so happy. I remember when I told Mark that I thought I was pregnant very shortly after we married, and he said, no, you're just adjusting to marriage. Sean was born 9 months later. And some months after that, I said, I think I'm pregnant again. And Mark said, no, you couldn't be. It's a virus. And 9 months later, we had a beautiful daughter, Mara. Then we got smart and waited 5 years and had our wonderful Megan. Yes, Sean, Megan was not an accident. She was the only one that Dad and I planned. Our children are the cornerstone of our lives. Mark was a devoted father. He spent hours reading to his children, helping them with projects, just playing and admiring them. He attended every game, became expert at college applications, and celebrated every milestone. He was so proud of them. Through all of our years, we thought life was just perfect. Our children were beautiful. We had amazing parents, and Mark was always there to listen. And we spoke for hours about our future, about education. We were both so immersed in our careers, and we constantly bounced ideas and beliefs off of each other. I think we both made better educational decisions because we had each other. We moved to Trumbull early in our marriage, and Mark went back to school to become certified in administration. I still remember shopping with him for the suit for his interview as a principal candidate in Brantford. He was chosen as principal in 1984. He was only 32, but I think everyone saw his leadership qualities. He was passionate about learning and all children's well-being. What more does one need? In 1991, he became principal of Tisco Elementary School, and that was the beginning of an educational legacy in Brantford. He so loved his job. Even at hospice last week, he said to one of the nurses, "It was so great to jump out of bed every morning and be excited to go to work." He loved his staff, the families, and most especially the children. I don't know how he did it, but he remembered every child's name. His mantra every day, as the rabbi said, was, "Be the best you can be." About 20 years ago, we moved to Hotchkiss Grove in Brantford. If we went anywhere for dinner in Brantford, I knew I would only have him half-time because everyone wanted to talk to Mark. He cherished those years at Tisco and created a family that continues today. His teachers, Mark's harem, as I called them, became my friends too, and were always faithful to him. They came to our house consistently when he was sick with coffee and donuts and would sit around the dining room table and talk and laugh. Those were his very best days. Honestly, they are a hysterical group, and he would say to me, "Can you imagine running a staff meeting with them?" When we went to hospice last week, the doctor said, "I feel like I know you. At least half of my staff here either went to your school or had kids in your school. They all love you so much." So, Mark's grandchildren, Jordan, Jack, Benjamin, Vivian, Henry, and Charlie. There were no other grandchildren as beautiful, talented, smart, and more precocious than our grandkids, and Papa said so. His face lit up just at the sight of them, or the promise that they were coming over. 4 of our six live in walking distance, and 2 live in Fairfield. We truly are blessed. They've grown up with us. Papa was always there to play board games, never tired of Monopoly, even with a 5-year-old. And he taught the 4 oldest ones to read. Whatever they were interested in was of top importance to Papa. Of course, he was devastated on September 12th when our Ben was diagnosed with leukemia. Mark was in Yale Hospital at the time, and so was Ben. We believe that Mark couldn't pass on until he knew Ben was free of leukemia. Only then was he able to end his own suffering. Up until last June, Mark, in retirement, was working with children as an interim school psychologist. He was hired by many districts by word of mouth. He never applied for a job. In September of 22, I came home from work, and he told me he was going to work at Killingworth High School. I was incredulous. He was on full-time oxygen and needed a wheelchair. He had worked there before, and he said they wanted him anyway. For a whole school year, he would get up at 4 a.m. to be ready to leave at 6. I would help him to the car, and the staff at Killingworth High School would meet him at his car every morning with his wheelchair. He counseled troubled high school students all day and loved his work. Every child was special, and he was so proud of their progress. I'm so grateful to the staff at Killingworth High School. They were so amazing to him. Mark and I had a lifelong gift. We always enjoyed each other. We loved to go to our home in Florida. We had special time alone to catch up and enjoy each other. We love our family and our friends. In fact, we cherish them and always felt so lucky to have them with us. Honestly, I have to say, Mark never said a bad word about anyone. He always found the good in every person. I can't say I was the same. I'd get angry at someone, and he'd say, Fran, it'll be okay. He or she is doing the best they can. We had many happy hours with friends, dinners, and shared joys and sorrows. Mark has friends from kindergarten here today, Jay and Gerald. His best friend, besides me, of course, was his brother, Fred. They would talk for hours every week, and when both were well, they would meet in Florida. He adored Fred's children, Rachel, David, and Amy. When Fred passed away last year, Mark was truly devastated. Last week when he was so sick, I said, I wish Fred were here with you. And he said, I'll be with him soon. I'm not sure I can do justice to this man that I so deeply loved and was so loved by others. Last Christmas, he couldn't get out to buy me a present, but he wrote me this note. Dear Fran, it's been an incredibly tough year, but I still feel so blessed. I married a wonderful woman, have 3 great kids, a super daughter and son-in-law, and 6 delightful grandchildren. You've made a wonderful family. You're an incredible mother and a loving wife. So Merry Christmas. Love always, Mark. I know we can't see Mark today, but I believe he's in the fullness of life and will be with all of us forever. Thank you, Mark.
Oh, Fran. Oh, my goodness. Fran and Rabbi Moss, your words have been like a balm for all of us, both healing and soothing. I don't know how tall he was. How tall was he? 5'8". Now I do know how tall he was, and I still know he was a giant of a man. I think of him first and foremost as a quintessential educator. And I think personally, back to a time when I was a rabbinical student, and we know rabbi means educator, so I'm very happy to be part of the family. When I was a rabbinical student, I taught largely in Jewish camp settings. And I had a mentor, one camp director, and he had a favorite quotation that he had framed on his desk so we all could see it every day. And it said, "You never know when you're going to touch the heart of a child." And I feel like Mark had that quotation seared into his soul, because we have no idea how many children's lives he touched. And we're all children. So now we can only be grateful that he did so, and grateful that he inspired so many others to carry on his passionate mission. And just one more thing. To Fran, my friend, the ex-nun. I know that you know your Bible. And I want you to know that as I think of you and Mark together, I think of the original Hebrew word for a term that appears in the book of Genesis to describe that first couple, Adam and Eve. Now, you may know that the King James Bible uses the word helpmeet to describe the dynamic between Adam and Eve. I don't know what in the world a helpmeet is. But I do know that the Hebrew word is so much clearer, and it stands as a wonderful testament to the marriage between Mark and Fran. The Hebrew word is ezer kenegdo, actually a phrase, ezer kenegdo. God creates an ezer, meaning helper, kenegdo, that's against, a helper against. This suggests that the best marriage of all is one that allows each partner to challenge one another in order to help them become their best selves. Kenegdo, against, in contrast to. The best marriage of all is one that honors difference and celebrates the contrasts. Mark and Fran were indeed each other's ezer kenegdo in the best ways that God could have hoped for. So today, we mourn the loss of a great educator, a wonderful parent, a wonderful grandparent, a mensch of a man, and the formidable team that was Mark and Fran together. Zichrono livracha. May the memory of Mark Rabinowitz continue to shower all those who mourn with blessings. Amen.
I asked all of you, did you have a favorite song? The first artist you mentioned was Jimmy Buffett. This is not going to be a Jimmy Buffett song. Sorry. Also, Zichrono Livracha. The other song that you mentioned was Judy Collins' song, right? And it was actually written by Joni Mitchell, one of the great poets of our time. And so it seemed especially appropriate to include this here. And I can carry a tune, but I can't sing like Josh Groban. So this is Josh Groban. I've looked at life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow. It's life's illusions I recall. I really don't know life at all.
Everywhere I looked at clouds
I invite everyone to please rise. God, who is with the brokenhearted, may your presence abide in this space, bring comfort to the Rabinowitz family amidst their pain. May they know peace along with all the bereaved in Israel. As together we sing. Oh, say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Oh, say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. The pallbearers can come forward at this time.